A black belt slaps a veteran with PTSD during training, mocking the 68-year-old's tremors in front of dozens of cameras at a charity event. The MMA champion humiliates the shaking Vietnam vet, calling him weak and pathetic while his crew films. Every second. But what this arrogant fighter doesn't know is that the veteran's private coach is Steven Seagal. The champion just assaulted a man who's been personally trained by the deadliest Aikido master alive, a legend who's dismantled crime syndicates with his bare hands. While the punk boasts about teaching old soldiers respect, the 73-year-old warrior watches from the doorway with eyes cold as winter steel. The veteran may have walked away in shame, but his sensei won't let this insult stand. The champion's about to learn why some men become myths and why you never mock a warrior under the protection of a living legend. What happens when you slap the wrong veteran in the wrong gym? Will the champion survive discovering who really trained this weak old man? What happened next would haunt the bully for the rest of his pathetic existence. Before we jump back and tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. The dojo stood silent in the pre-dawn darkness, its wooden floors gleaming under a single overhead light. Steven Seagal knelt in the center, his breathing so controlled it barely disturbed the incense smoke curling upward. At exactly 5:30 a.m., the door opened. Frank Kowalski entered, his hands trembling as he removed his shoes. The tremors had been worse lately. Some mornings he couldn't even button his shirt. But here, in this simple room that smelled of sandalwood and old wood polish, something always shifted. "Good morning, sensei." Frank's voice carried the raspiness of too many sleepless nights. Seagal rose in one fluid motion, like water flowing upward. At 73, he moved with the grace of a man who'd never forgotten how to be dangerous. His silver-gray hair was pulled back in a traditional topknot, and his eyes held the warmth of a grandfather mixed with something deeper, something that had seen too much. "Morning, Frank." Seagal's voice was soft as distant thunder. "How are the dreams?" "Better." It was only half a lie. Nancy made me chamomile tea before bed. They began with breathing exercises, Seagal's massive hands gently correcting Frank's posture. The tremors in Frank's hands gradually slowed, like ripples on water finding stillness. This was their routine, every morning for 6 months now, rebuilding what Vietnam had broken. "Breathe from here," Seagal touched his own center, just below the navel. The Japanese call it hara, your power source. When the mind storms, the center holds. Frank tried to focus, but his thoughts drifted. "Nancy signed me up for something today. A charity event at some MMA gym downtown. Champions training veterans, she called it." Seagal's expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. "Ultimate Warrior Gym. That's the one. You know it?" "I know of it." Seagal guided Frank through a basic wrist release, his movements patient and precise. "The owner is Damon Reeves. He calls himself the Destroyer." Frank's tremor returned briefly. "Maybe I shouldn't go? I'm not ready for. You're stronger than you know." Seagal's hand steadied Frank's wrist. "But strength isn't about what others think. It's about knowing yourself." They moved through the forms. Ikkyo, Nikkyo, Sankyo, each technique a meditation. In motion, Seagal never pushed, never forced. When Frank's body remembered its old injuries and locked up, Seagal simply waited, like a mountain waits for snow to melt. "In Aikido," Seagal said, demonstrating a redirect that sent imaginary force harmlessly past, "we don't meet aggression with aggression. We blend, redirect, harmonize. The angry man defeats himself." Frank nodded, trying to embody the principle. His movements were getting smoother, the tremors fading into background noise. For these precious moments, he wasn't a broken veteran. He was just a student learning an ancient art. As they finished, Seagal poured green tea from a cast-iron pot that was older than either of them. They sat in comfortable silence, the steam rising between them like incense. "I think I'm getting better, sensei," Frank said, his hands steady around the warm cup. Seagal studied him with those deep, knowing eyes. "Healing is not a destination, Frank. It's a journey we take one breath at a time." The morning sun was just beginning to paint the dojo windows gold. Frank kissed Nancy goodbye at the door, her weathered hands straightening his collar with practiced care. "You'll do fine, sailor. Just remember what sensei taught you. It's just a charity thing. Frank said, trying to convince himself. No big deal. Nancy's eyes, still bright after 45 years of marriage, saw right through him. You're helping other veterans by being there. That matters. The drive downtown took Frank through Denver's shifting landscape, from quiet residential streets to the gleaming glass and chrome of the business district. Ultimate Warrior Gym squatted on a corner like a neon predator, all sharp angles and aggressive branding. Banners stretched across the facade. Champions train veterans, hosted by Damon the Destroyer Reeves. The parking lot was packed with news vans and expensive sports cars. Frank's old pickup looked like a tired dog among wolves. He sat for a moment, hands gripping the steering wheel, feeling the familiar tightness in his chest. Inside the gym, assaulted his senses. Music pounded from hidden speakers, all bass and aggression. The walls were covered in mirrors and fight posters, images of barely contained violence. The smell hit him next: sweat, leather, and something chemical, energy drinks or supplements. Other veterans were already gathering near a raised ring. Frank recognized the look in their eyes, that careful watchfulness of men who'd learned that danger could come from any direction. Some were missing limbs. Others, like Frank, carried wounds that didn't show. All right, heroes, circle up. The voice boomed across the gym. Damon Reeves strutted into view like a rooster in a henhouse. Everything about him screamed dominance, from his perfectly sculpted muscles to his designer workout gear that probably cost more than Frank's monthly mortgage. His shaved head gleamed under the harsh lights, and his green eyes swept over the veterans with barely concealed disdain. "Welcome to Ultimate Warrior Gym," Damon said, his manager Eddie Carlson hovering behind him like a nervous shadow. "Today, we're going to show you what real training looks like. Some of you might think you know about combat." His eyes lingered on the older veterans, but that was then. This is now. Frank felt his jaw tighten. Several younger veterans shifted uncomfortably. "MMA is the evolution of fighting," Damon continued, shadowboxing as he talked. "No more of that traditional martial arts movie bullshit. This is real. This is pure." A camera crew circled them, catching every angle. Frank noticed how Damon played to the lenses, turning his best side, flexing subtly. This wasn't about helping veterans. This was about Damon Reeves. Outside, unnoticed by anyone, an old pickup truck pulled into the far corner of the parking lot. Steven Seagal sat behind the wheel, his eyes tracking Frank through the gym's glass front. He'd followed at a distance, something gnawing at him since Frank mentioned the event. Seagal had known men like Damon Reeves his whole life, predators, who confused fear with respect, who built themselves up by tearing others down. He'd hoped he was wrong about this one. Through the window, he watched Damon directing the veterans into lines for warm-ups. Even from here, Seagal could see Frank's shoulders tensing, his hands beginning their telltale tremor. "Be strong, my friend," Seagal murmured, his hand moving unconsciously to the door handle. Not yet. Frank needed to face this himself, but Seagal would be watching. The music in the gym crescendoed as Damon clapped his hands sharply. "All right, heroes, let's see what you've got." The warm-up started simply enough: stretches, arm circles, basic movements designed to get blood flowing. Frank found a spot in the back row, trying to blend in. His body remembered these group exercises from boot camp 48 years ago, but his mind was already beginning to fragment. "Jumping jacks," Damon barked. "Let's go." 50 count. The veterans began in ragged unison. Some modified the movement for prosthetics or old injuries. Frank started strong, but by the 10th rep, his rhythm faltered. The tremor in his hands threw off his coordination, arms refusing to sync with his legs. The music cut abruptly. "Hold up, everyone." Damon's voice sliced through the gym. "Looks like we need to slow down for Grandpa here." Every eye turned to Frank. The cameras swiveled like hungry vultures. Frank's face burned as he tried to steady his hands against his thighs. "I'm fine," Frank managed. "Just need a second." "A second?" Damon stalked over, his crew parting before him. "This is basic training 101. My 12-year-old nephew can do jumping jacks." "It's a medical condition," Frank said quietly. "The tremors, they..." "Excuses." Damon grabbed Frank's wrists, yanking his arms up roughly. "This is proper form. Arms up, out to the side. It's not rocket science." Frank tried to pull away, but Damon's grip was iron. The younger man demonstrated the movement by forcing Frank's arms through the motion like a broken marionette. On the final demonstration, Damon shoved harder than necessary. Frank's balance, already compromised by the tremors, gave way. He went down hard, his hip striking the padded floor, with a sound that made several veterans wince. The impact jarred through his old injuries, the shrapnel scars, the compressed vertebrae, all the hidden damage from a war that never really ended. "You all right, brother?" A younger veteran with a prosthetic leg moved to help. "He's fine." Damon waved him off. "He needs to learn to stand on his own. That's what we're here for, right? To make you strong again?" Frank pushed himself up slowly, dignity hanging by a thread. His whole body shook now, not just his hands. Around him, the other veterans had gone quiet, recognizing something in Frank's eyes that Damon couldn't see. "Try again," Damon commanded, backing up to give him room. "And this time, try not to embarrass yourself." The cameras kept rolling. Eddie Carlson whispered something urgently to one of the crew, probably about liability, but Damon ignored him. This was great content, the champion pushing the veteran to overcome his limitations. The audience would eat it up. Frank stood, squaring his shoulders with effort. He attempted the jumping jacks again, fighting to control his rebellious nervous system. But trauma doesn't care about willpower. The tremor worsened, his movements becoming increasingly erratic. "Jesus Christ," Damon muttered, loud enough for everyone to hear. This is exactly why. Through the glass doors, a figure in black emerged from an old pickup truck. Steven Seagal moved across the parking lot with purposeful calm, his eyes fixed on the scene inside. He'd seen enough. Frank didn't notice his teacher approaching. His world had narrowed to the impossible task of making his body obey, while around him the other veterans watched with growing anger at Damon's cruelty. The champion circled Frank like a shark, shaking his head theatrically for the cameras. "Maybe we should have a seniors class instead. Would that be better, Grandpa?" The door to the gym opened with a soft chime that nobody heard over Damon's mockery. Frank tried one more time. He planted his feet, squared his shoulders, and began. The movement. For 3 repetitions, muscle memory won over trauma. Then, on the 4th, his whole body betrayed him. The tremor started in his hands and rippled outward like an earthquake. His arms jerked uncontrollably, his legs locked, and suddenly he was back there, jungle heat, helicopter blades, Danny's blood on his hands as he tried desperately to stop the bleeding. "Corpseman up," the ghost voice echoed in his head. "Doc, we need Doc." But Doc was him, and he was failing, always failing, never fast enough, never good enough. "This is pathetic." Damon's voice cut through the flashback. "Absolutely pathetic." Frank blinked, reality crashing back. He was standing frozen in the middle of the gym, arms half raised, shaking like autumn leaves. The veterans around him had backed away, giving him space, recognizing the 1,000-yard stare. "What's your excuse?" Damon stepped closer, playing to the cameras. "PTSD? Shell shock. Everyone's got PTSD these days. It's the participation trophy of mental health." Something in Frank snapped, not into violence, but into a deeper breaking. His hands dropped to his sides. "I said, what's your excuse, old man?" The slap came without warning. Damon's open palm cracked across Frank's face with the sharp sound of contempt. Not hard enough to knock him down, just hard enough to humiliate. The gym went tomb silent. Even the camera operators lowered their equipment, uncomfortable with what they were capturing. Frank's hand rose slowly to his reddening cheek, his eyes vacant as windows in an abandoned house. "There," Damon announced to the room. "Sometimes you need a wake-up call. That's what separates warriors from victims." Frank turned without a word and walked toward the exit. His gait was mechanical, automatic. The walk of a man who'd just been reminded of every failure, every moment of weakness, every friend he couldn't save. "Yeah, walk away," Damon called after him. "That's what quitters do. They walk away." The door chimed as Frank pushed through. He moved past a figure in black without seeing, without recognizing the man who'd spent 6 months rebuilding his shattered confidence. Their eyes met for a fraction of a second, Frank's filled with shame so deep it seemed bottomless, Seagal's darkening with something far more dangerous. Frank continued to his truck, fumbling with his keys. Behind him, through the glass, Damon was already moving on, laughing with his crew about broken old soldiers and the weak generation. Steven Seagal stood in the doorway, perfectly still. His expression remained serene, almost peaceful. But his eyes had gone cold as a winter graveyard. He watched Frank's truck pull away, noted the unsteady driving that spoke of hands shaking too hard to grip the wheel properly. Inside the gym, one of the veterans, the young man with the prosthetic leg, started toward the door, face flushed with anger. Others moved to follow. Anyone else want to leave? Damon challenged. Door's right there. But if you stay, you might actually learn something. Seagal stepped inside, the door closing softly behind him. None of them noticed the predator that had just entered their midst. He moved with the fluid grace of water, every step deliberate, every breath controlled. The storm was coming. But first, like all storms, it would gather its power in silence. Seagal caught up to Frank just as he fumbled his keys for the third time. They clattered on the asphalt, and Frank stared at them like foreign objects, his whole body shaking. Not from PTSD now, but from rage and humiliation. Frank. The veteran spun, fists half raised, then sagged when he saw who it was. Sensei. You saw? I saw. Seagal bent smoothly to retrieve the keys. Come, sit with me. He guided Frank to the passenger seat of the truck, then climbed behind the wheel. For a moment, they sat in silence, Frank's breathing ragged. I'm sorry, Frank whispered. I'm so sorry. I thought I was ready. I thought, his voice cracked. 48 years since Nam, and I still can't do fucking jumping jacks without falling apart. You have nothing to apologize for. I embarrassed myself. Embarrassed you. All your teaching, and I just froze like a man with wounds, Seagal interrupted gently. Not all scars are visible, Frank. You know this. Frank's hands, clenched and unclenched. He hit me, in front of everyone. And I just walked away. What kind of man just walks away? The kind who knows that true strength isn't about fighting back. Seagal's voice carried the weight of hard-won wisdom. Let me tell you something. 20 years ago, in Bangkok, I was demonstrating at a police academy. A young officer, trying to impress his friends, sucker punched me during a break. Bloodied my nose. Frank looked up, surprised. I could have destroyed him. Every instinct, every year of training said to put him through the wall. Instead, I wiped the blood, bowed, and continued teaching. Seagal's eyes were distant, remembering. That young officer? He found me later, crying with shame. He became one of my best students. Now he runs anti-trafficking operations across Southeast Asia. This is different. That bastard is a small man trying to feel big. Seagal started the truck. Your worth isn't determined by his ignorance, Frank. Your courage isn't measured by your ability to do jumping jacks. You saved 13 men in a jungle while bleeding from shrapnel wounds. You raised 2 children. You've been married to the same woman for 45 years. That's strength. Frank was quiet as Seagal drove, his tremors slowly subsiding. When they reached his house, Nancy was already on the porch, somehow knowing something was wrong. I'll explain, Seagal told Frank. Go inside. Rest. He helped Frank to the door, spoke quietly with Nancy for a moment. Her face went from worry to anger to a protective fierceness that reminded Seagal why Frank had survived so much. Thank you, she whispered. Seagal nodded, then turned back toward his truck. I forgot something at the gym. I'll need to go back. Nancy caught his arm. Steven, he patted her hand gently. Take care of him. He's stronger than he knows. As he drove away, Nancy saw something in her rearview mirror that made her shiver. Seagal's face had changed, the grandfather's warmth replaced by something ancient and implacable. The warrior was awakening. The gym hadn't changed in the 20 minutes Seagal had been gone. Same pounding music, same smell of aggression and ego. The veterans were paired up now, practicing basic strikes under Damon's theatrical supervision. Seagal approached the front desk where a receptionist scrolled through her phone, bubblegum popping. He silently filled out the liability waiver, signing with precise strokes. She didn't look up once. He entered the training area in simple black workout clothes that had seen 1,000 dojos. No logos, no flash, just functional fabric that moved with him. Several veterans noticed him, something about his bearing triggering old instincts. This man was dangerous, their survivor's radar whispered. But dangerous to whom? All right, fresh meat. Damon's voice boomed. Need a partner for the new grandpa. Truck, you're up. Truck Morrison lumbered over, 6'4", 260, cauliflower ears framing a face only a mother could love. He grinned, showing a gold tooth. Hope you got good insurance, old-timer. Seagal bowed slightly. Truck laughed. They began with basic drills: jab, cross, hook. Truck threw lazy punches, expecting an easy round. Seagal flowed around them like smoke, never quite where Truck expected. When Truck increased his speed, Seagal seemed to move less, not more, always just outside the arc of impact. Stop dancing and fight, Truck growled, throwing a haymaker. Seagal redirected it with 2 fingers, sending Truck stumbling into the ropes. The bigger man's face reddened. He charged back with a combination that would have dropped most men. Seagal wasn't there. He'd shifted minutely, and Truck's momentum carried him past. A gentle touch to the back sent him sprawling. Damon noticed the commotion. His eyes narrowed as he stalked over, cameras trailing. Looks like we got another grandpa trying to prove something. You know the old man who just left? Seagal's voice was calm as a mountain lake. He's my student. Student? Damon laughed. What are you teaching him? How to fall down. How to shake. I'm teaching him Aikido. The way of harmony. Harmony. Damon's mockery sharpened. That pacifist bullshit? This is MMA, old man. Mixed martial arts. Real fighting. I see. Seagal's expression didn't change. And hitting a traumatized veteran is real fighting? The gym grew quiet. Veterans and fighters alike sensed the shift in energy, like the air before lightning strikes. He needed a wake-up call, Damon bristled. Sometimes you owe him an apology. The words were soft, but they landed like hammers. Damon's face flushed. What did you say? You struck a man who couldn't defend himself. A man who served his country while you were still in diapers. You owe him an apology. Damon stepped closer, using his height advantage. Or what, Grandpa? You gonna show me some ancient Chinese secret? Gonna use the force? Several fighters chuckled nervously. Eddie Carlson had gone pale, recognizing something in Seagal's stillness that Damon's ego blinded him to. I'm going to give you one chance, Seagal said quietly, to remember what honor means. Damon's answer was a shove to Seagal's chest. There's your chance, old man. The shove would have sent most men stumbling. Seagal simply wasn't there when the force arrived. He'd shifted his weight subtly, and Damon's hands found only air. The champion stumbled forward, off balance. What the? Damon spun and threw a professional haymaker, the kind that had knocked out 12 opponents in the octagon. Seagal moved. Minimally, just enough to let the fist whisper past his ear. He touched Damon's elbow gently, adding to the existing momentum. Damon's punch continued into empty space, his body following, until he crashed shoulder first into the ropes. The gym held its breath. Veterans pressed against the walls. Cameras rolled, operators sensing something extraordinary. Damon came off the ropes like a bull, throwing a combination that had taken him years to perfect: jab, cross, hook, uppercut. Each punch was technically perfect, delivered with knockout power. Seagal flowed between them like water between rocks. He didn't block, didn't strike back. He simply wasn't where the punches went. His movements were so small, so efficient, that he seemed to barely move at all. Stand still, Damon roared, his face purpling with effort and embarrassment. He launched a kick, a brutal Thai roundhouse aimed at Seagal's ribs. Seagal caught the leg gently, as if accepting a gift. For a moment, Damon balanced on one foot, eyes wide with the realization of his vulnerability. Seagal could have destroyed the knee, shattered the ankle, ended Damon's career with a twist. Instead, he swept the supporting leg with surgical precision. Damon crashed to the mat, the impact driving the air from his lungs. Your anger makes you weak, Seagal said conversationally, as if teaching a beginner's class. You telegraph every movement. Damon rolled to his feet, ego overriding wisdom. He attempted a wrestling takedown, dropping low, driving forward with his shoulder. Seagal pivoted gracefully, one hand guiding Damon's head down while the other found his wrist. The Aikido lock was poetry in motion. Damon's own momentum carried him face first toward the mat, while his wrist bent at an angle that made every fighter in the room wince. At the last second, Seagal controlled the descent, letting Damon land without injury. Strength without honor is just violence, Seagal said, his knee resting lightly on Damon's back, the wrist lock maintaining control without causing damage. The room exploded in whispers. Someone said, "Holy shit, that's Steven Seagal." The name rippled through the crowd like wildfire. Phones appeared, despite the gym's no recording policy. Eddie Carlson looked ready to vomit. Seagal released the lock and helped Damon to his feet. The champion's face was a study in humiliation and confusion. His worldview shattered in 30 seconds of one-sided combat. "Your student," Seagal said quietly, "deserves an apology. All these veterans deserve better than your contempt." He bowed slightly, not mockingly, but with genuine respect for what Damon could become if he chose. Then he turned and walked toward the exit, leaving behind a silent gym full of witnesses to something they'd tell their grandchildren about. Eddie Carlson was already reaching for his phone, hands shaking as he scrolled through contacts. They'd just assaulted the wrong veteran's teacher. The parking lot erupted in chaos as Damon burst through the doors, his entourage scrambling to keep up. His face was purple with rage and humiliation, fists clenched so tight his knuckles had gone white. "I'll fucking sue him. You saw that, he assaulted me. Where's my lawyer?" Eddie Carlson grabbed Damon's arm, pulling him away from the growing crowd of veterans who'd followed them outside. Some were filming, others simply watching with barely concealed satisfaction. "Damon, shut up and listen to me." Eddie's voice carried an urgency that cut through the champion's rage. "Do you know who that was? Some old fuck who knows parlor tricks. That was Steven Seagal." Eddie's words came out in a desperate hiss. "Steven fucking Seagal." Damon's rant stopped mid-sentence. "Bullshit. Steven Seagal's like 80. Or dead. He's 73, and you just shoved him on camera." Eddie pulled out his phone, hands shaking as he scrolled. Look at this." The images flashed by. Seagal with foreign dignitaries. Seagal demonstrating for police forces. Old headlines. Action star helps DEA bust cartel leaders. Seagal's testimony crucial in human trafficking trial. "This is from 5 years ago," Eddie continued, voice dropping. "Bangkok. He personally took down a trafficking ring. 15 men. Alone. 3 of them died from their injuries." Damon's rage was cooling into something else, not quite fear, yet but unease. So what? He's still just some washed up, he's CIA trained. Or was? Nobody knows for sure because half his file is redacted. Eddie was already dialing. "He's taken down cartels, Yakuza, Bratva. And you just publicly humiliated his student and then attacked him." "I didn't attack him. I pushed, on camera, in front of witnesses." Eddie's call connected. "Mr. Markov, we might have a problem." The voice on the other end was cold, accented. "What kind of problem?" "The old man from the gym incident. It's Steven Seagal." Silence. Then Seagal, "You're certain?" "I'm looking at him right now. He just made Damon look like a child. It's already going viral." More silence. In the background, Damon could hear classical music, Rachmaninoff, maybe. When Viktor Markov spoke again, his voice carried the weight of old memories. "I thought he was retired. Or dead." A pause. "This changes things. What do you want us to do?" "Nothing. Yet. Have Dmitri put surveillance on him. Find out where he lives, who he associates with. Everyone connected to him. The veteran, especially the veteran. And his family. Seagal has a weakness for innocence. We may need leverage." Eddie glanced at Damon, who was staring at his phone, watching someone's shaky footage of his humiliation spread across social media in real time. "Mr. Markov, should we be worried?" A dry laugh. "In 1997, Seagal cost my associates $40 million and sent 16 men to prison. So yes, Mr. Carlson, you should be worried." The line went dead. Eddie looked at Damon, whose face had finally gone pale. "What have I done?" the champion whispered. Eddie didn't answer. He was watching Seagal's truck disappear into traffic, wondering if they'd just signed their own death warrants. Viktor Markov's office occupied the top floor of a legitimate import business, all leather and dark wood and bulletproof glass. The Denver skyline glittered beyond, but Viktor's attention was fixed on the files spread across his desk. "Steven Seagal," he said, pronouncing each syllable like he was tasting poison. "I thought time had finally done what bullets couldn't." Dmitri, his lieutenant, stood at attention. "The surveillance team is in place. The dojo is small, residential neighborhood. Easy to watch." Viktor studied the photos, some new, most old. Seagal with Japanese officials. Seagal testifying. In federal court. Seagal walking away from burning warehouses in Bangkok. In 1997, Victor said, lighting a cigarette with practiced elegance, "I was running operations through Vladivostok. Clean routes, reliable people. Then this American movie star appeared, playing hero. He tapped ash into a crystal tray. 40 million in product, seized. My mentor, Volkov, died in prison because of information Seagal provided. The government called him a civilian consultant." Victor laughed bitterly. "Civilian? This man has more blood on his hands than most soldiers. What are your orders?" Victor opened another file. Architectural plans, shipping manifests, photos of young women. "Our Denver operation generates 12 million annually. The gyms provide perfect cover. Athletes travel constantly. No one questions equipment trucks. And Damon's celebrity status keeps police away. Until now." Until now. Victor's fingers drummed the desk. Seagal has a pattern. He finds evil and destroys it completely. No negotiation, no buyouts. In Bangkok, they offered him 5 million to walk away. They found the messenger's body in 3 different districts. Dmitri shifted uncomfortably. "Perhaps we should relocate. The merchandise and show weakness? Let every cowboy with a conscience think they can interfere?" Victor's eyes went cold. "No. We prepare, we watch, and we wait. Men like Seagal always have one flaw: they care too much." Across town, Seagal knelt in his dojo, facing a simple shrine. Incense smoke curled upward as he meditated, but part of his awareness extended outward. The watchers weren't subtle. A van that had circled twice, a man pretending to read a newspaper in the evening gloom. His phone rang. Frank's name appeared. "Sensei, I'm sorry to bother you." "You're never a bother, Frank. I wanted to apologize again. For today, for being weak." Seagal's voice carried infinite patience. "Tomorrow morning, 5:30, as always. We'll work on your breathing. I don't know if I can face, not the gym. Here, just us. Healing happens in safe spaces, Frank." After Frank hung up, Seagal remained motionless for another hour. The watchers grew bored, sloppy. One lit a cigarette, ruining his night vision. Another checked his phone, the screen's glow marking his position. Amateurs, but amateurs with organization behind them. When full darkness came, Seagal rose smoothly and performed a simple ka, movements that looked like meditation but were preparation for war. Soon, he whispered to the empty dojo. Outside, Dimitri's team reported nothing unusual. They didn't understand they'd already been marked, cataloged, dismissed as threats. The hunter was deciding when to become the hunted. Morning came crisp and clear. Frank's truck pulled into the dojo's small lot at exactly 5:30, old habits dying hard. He moved stiffly, yesterday's fall aggravating old injuries, but his jaw was set with determination. Seagal waited at the door. "Good morning, Frank." "Morning, Sensei." Frank bowed deeper than usual. "Thank you. For yesterday. For not giving up on me." They began with meditation, then moved into gentle stretches. Frank's tremors were worse this morning, emotional trauma manifesting physically, but Seagal worked around them, adapting each technique. At 6:30, a Hummer pulled up outside. Through the window, they watched 3 men exit. Truck Morrison, Carlos Razor, Ruiz, and Tommy Chun. Damon's enforcers. "Trouble?" Frank asked, tensing. "An opportunity to teach." Seagal moved to the door. "Continue your forms. Focus on breathing." The 3 fighters entered with the aggressive casualness of men used to intimidation. Truck led, his bulk filling the doorway. "Morning, Sensei." The title dripped mockery. "We came to apologize for yesterday." Seagal studied them calmly. "Apologies are always welcome. Please, remove your shoes." They exchanged glances but complied, their swagger slightly reduced in socked feet. Seagal led them to the main floor where Frank continued his kata, pretending not to notice them. "Tea?" Seagal asked, already moving to prepare it. "We didn't come for," Razor started. "In Japan," Seagal said conversationally, measuring leaves into a pot. "Even enemies share tea before combat. It reminds us we're human." He set out 5 cups with practiced precision. The fighters watched, off balance. They'd come expecting confrontation or fear, not hospitality. "Yesterday," Seagal continued, pouring water heated to exactly the right temperature, "your employer lost control. It happens. The question is, what did he learn?" "Damon wanted us to deliver a message." Tommy said, trying to regain the initiative. After tea, Seagal served each man personally, his movements containing such grace that refusing seemed impossible. Even Truck accepted his cup awkwardly. They sipped in silence. Frank had stopped his forms, watching with amazement as Seagal turned would-be violence into a tea ceremony. Now, Seagal said, setting down his cup. Your message? Truck stood aggressively, reaching for Seagal's shoulder. The message is, Seagal wasn't there. Truck's hand found air, his momentum carrying him forward. A gentle redirect sent him into a perfect roll, ending seated on the mat, somehow still. Holding his undamaged teacup, Razor threw a sucker punch. Seagal tilted his head minutely. Razor's fist struck the wooden post behind where Seagal had been. He yelped, cradling his hand. Tommy attempted a kick at the tea table. Seagal shifted. It's 6 inches with his foot. Tommy's kick carried him into the wall, which he hit with a thud that rattled the weapon's displays. Through it all, Seagal never set down his tea. Not a drop spilled. Tell Damon, he said, helping each man to his feet with genuine courtesy, that warriors choose their battles wisely, and that Mr. Kowalski has accepted his apology, even though it wasn't offered. The three left humbled and confused, their message undelivered, carrying a lesson they didn't yet understand. Frank stared. How did you? 40 years of practice, Seagal smiled. And they telegraphed everything. Would you like more tea? Nancy Kowalski had driven past the dojo 3 times before finally parking. At 2 p.m. on a Tuesday, the small lot was empty except for Seagal's truck. She sat for a moment, gathering courage, then walked to the door. Seagal answered before she could knock. Mrs. Kowalski, please, come in. I'm sorry to bother you. Frank doesn't know I'm here. He'd be embarrassed. Husbands and wives rarely keep secrets successfully. Seagal's smile was gentle. He's lucky to have someone who fights for him. He led her to a small sitting area, traditional cushions. Around a low table, Nancy sat carefully, her movements showing the same grace that had caught Frank's attention at a USO dance 46 years ago. Frank came home different yesterday, she began. Not just hurt. Broken. I haven't seen him like that since. She twisted her wedding ring. Since Danny. Seagal poured tea without asking, the ritual giving her time to compose herself. My brother, Nancy continued. Danny Sullivan. Frank never talks about it, but I know. They were in the same unit. Danny was hit during an ambush, chest wound. Frank tried to save him. Worked on him for 20 minutes under fire, even after he knew it was too late. Nancy nodded, tears threatening. 13 other men lived because Frank kept working, kept moving between them. But all he remembers is Danny. My parents never blamed him. They thanked him for trying. But Frank, he's carried that guilt for 48 years. Survivor's guilt is the heaviest burden a warrior can carry. Heavier than any physical wound. That's why yesterday hit him so hard. Being called weak, being mocked for something he can't control, it confirmed everything he believes about himself. Nancy met Seagal's eyes. He was getting better. These 6 months with you, I saw glimpses of the man I married. Then that bastard, Damon Reeves, is a small man with large insecurities. His opinion matters only if Frank allows it to. Can you help him? Really help him, not just teach him to fight? Fighting is the smallest part of what I teach. Seagal refilled her cup. Frank is already a warrior. He's simply forgotten. My job is to help him remember. Nancy reached into her purse, pulling out a faded photo. This was them, Danny and Frank, right before. She touched the 2 smiling faces. Sometimes I think Frank died that day too. Just took his body longer to realize it. Perhaps. Seagal said softly, he's not dead. Perhaps he's just been sleeping, waiting for someone to remind him why he survived when others didn't. They sat in comfortable silence, 2 people who loved the same broken warrior. Outside, Victor's surveillance team snapped photos with a telephoto lens. The woman visiting. Alone, the intimate conversation over tea. It suggested connections beyond a simple student-teacher relationship. Federal contact? One operative muttered. Handler? Ex-wife? They documented everything, missing the simple truth. Sometimes love takes many forms, and the fiercest warriors are those who fight for others' healing. Nancy left after an hour, hope rekindled. Seagal watched her go, noting the surveillance van, filing away faces and positions. They thought they were hunting him. They didn't realize he'd already begun hunting them. The boathouse squatted on the edge of Cherry Creek Reservoir like an abandoned toad. Victor had owned it through shell companies for 5 years, close enough to the city for convenience, isolated enough for privacy. At 9 p.m., the only lights were from the marina half a mile away. Damon arrived in his Lamborghini, music thumping until he killed the engine. The silence that followed felt oppressive. Eddie sat beside him, sweating despite the cool evening. Maybe we should shut up. Damon's knuckles were white on the steering wheel. We're already here. Inside, Victor waited in an office that looked like a shipping container had mated with a Soviet interrogation room. Dmitri flanked him, hands clasped like a bouncer at a funeral. Champion, Victor said, making the title sound like an insult. Sit. Damon sat. The chair was deliberately uncomfortable. Victor opened a laptop, turning it to face them. Photos filled the screen. Seagal in Japan, in Russia, in a dozen countries. Some showed him in traditional martial arts settings. Others showed aftermath. Bodies arranged like broken dolls, buildings burning, men in handcuffs or body bags. This is who you provoked, Victor said conversationally. Steven Seagal, born 1952, 7th Dan Aikido master. Trained in Japan under Morihei Ueshiba's direct students. CIA asset from 1985 to 2010, officially. Unofficially? Who knows? Each photo clicked past like an accusation. Bangkok, 1997. Cost my associates $40 million. Click. Tokyo, 2003. Entire Yakuza family dismantled after they kidnapped an ambassador's daughter. Click. Moscow, 2008. 12 traffickers dead, 50 women freed. The Bratva still has a price on his head. So he was hot shit 20 years ago, Damon said, bravado fighting with growing fear. He's an old man now. Victor backhanded him casually, precisely. Damon's head snapped sideways, blood spotting his designer shirt. Old? You think age matters to men like him? Victor lit a cigarette, ignoring California's smoking laws. In the footage, did he seem old? When he made you look like a child, was he breathing hard? Damon touched his split lip, saying nothing. Your debt to me is $2 million. Your gym is collateral. More importantly, your gym is vital to my operations. Victor pulled up new images. The warehouse, shipping containers, frightened faces glimpsed through mesh. 12 to 15 women per month move through your facility. Another 20 through the satellite gyms. Annual gross, 30 million. Net, 12 million. Do you understand what you've risked with your ego? I didn't know, no. You didn't. Think. Victor closed the laptop. But damage is done. Seagal is involved now. So we adapt. He slid photos across the desk. Frank and Nancy at their home. Frank entering the dojo. Nancy's visit that afternoon. The veteran is his weakness. And the woman is the veteran's. Victor smiled coldly. Make the old soldier suffer. Publicly. Humiliate him worse than before. When Seagal reacts, and he will react, we'll be ready. What if he doesn't? Then we escalate. The woman, perhaps. Nothing permanent. Just pressure. Victor stood, meeting over. You have 1 week. The veterans exhibition you announced? Make it happen. Make it brutal. Break the old man's spirit completely. As they left, Damon whispered to Eddie. What have I gotten into? Eddie had no answer. He was wondering if their life insurance policies were current. Frank discovered the vandalism at 6 a.m., walking out to get the newspaper. His truck sat on 4 flat tires. Forget the dojo spray painted across the windshield. In dripping red letters. The paint was still tacky. Sons of bitches, he muttered. Then louder. Nancy. She appeared at the door in her robe, took one look, and went straight for the phone. Frank tried to stop her, but she was already dialing. Steven? It's Nancy. You need to see this. Seagal arrived in 12 minutes, studied the scene like a crime photographer. He noted the angle of the spray, the pattern of the tire slashes, quick, professional, meant to send a message, not just damage property. Damon's boys. Frank asked. Perhaps something worse. Seagal pulled out his phone. Mike? It's Steven. I need a favor. Detective Mike Rodriguez, retired, answered. On the second ring, gravelly voice still carrying cop authority. Christ, Steven, it's not even 7. This better be good. Unusual activity around Ultimate Warrior Gym. Eastern Europeans, late-night deliveries. Can you check your sources? Silence. Then That's Damon Reeves' place. The fighter you jest. Embarrassed? The same. I'll make some calls. That gym's been on our radar. Nothing solid, but rumors. Trafficking, money laundering. The usual wise guys playing athlete shit. While they waited for the police report, Seagal helped Frank patch the tires temporarily. Nancy brought coffee, her hands shaking with suppressed anger. They come to our home, she said quietly. Threaten us at our home. That's what cowards do, Seagal replied. They try to make you afraid. The question is, will you let them? Frank's jaw set. I'm not quitting. They want me scared? Too bad. I've been scared since 1969. One more threat doesn't change anything. By afternoon, Rodriguez called back. You stirred up something nasty. My guy in organized crime says there's been chatter, Eastern European connections, missing persons reports that go nowhere. Young women vanishing from bus stations, shelters. Some witnesses mentioned fighters, gyms. How long? 2, maybe 3 years. Ever since some Russian money started flowing through town. Name Viktor Markov mean anything? Seagal's expression darkened. We've crossed paths. Bangkok, 1997. Small world. He's supposedly legitimate now. Import, export, but nobody believes it. Owns properties all over Denver through shell companies. Word is Damon owes him big. That evening, Frank trained harder than ever, channeling anger into movement. His tremors faded as he focused, each technique sharper, more precise. They want me to quit, he said between forms. But I've got news for them. You don't survive. Tep by quitting. You don't save 13 men by giving up. Seagal nodded approvingly. Outside, he'd already spotted the watchers. Different car, same intent. Let them watch. Let them report back that fear hadn't taken root. Rodriguez texted as they finished. You were right to call. This is bigger than gym business. Be careful, brother. Careful was for men with something to lose. Seagal had already lost everything that mattered years ago. Now he had nothing left but purpose. The surveillance team left Seagal's dojo at 10:47 p.m., unaware they'd switched from hunters to hunted. Seagal followed at a professional distance, headlights off, navigating by memory and moonlight. They led him across Denver to an industrial district where the city showed its ugly bones. The warehouse complex sprawled like a cancer between legitimate businesses and abandoned lots. Damon's secondary gym occupied one corner, but the trucks were heading deeper into the maze. Seagal, parked blocks away, killed the engine. From his truck's lockbox, he retrieved night vision scope, tactical camera, and a knife he hoped not to need. Old habits wrapped around him like familiar clothes. He moved through shadows with disturbing ease, muscle memory from a life he'd tried to leave behind. The guards were competent but complacent, walking predictable patterns, checking phones, smoking on duty. Ex-military, probably, but soft from easy work. The main warehouse throbbed with activity despite the hour. Through grimy windows, Seagal observed trucks being unloaded. Not cargo, people. Young women, some barely adults, herded like cattle into the building's belly. His jaw tightened. This wasn't about ego or gym territory anymore. He circled the building, documenting everything. License plates, faces, the configuration of holding areas glimpsed through windows. The cells were crude but effective. Chain link and padlocks, mattresses on concrete floors. Some women sat blank-eyed. Others sobbed. A few pounded on the fencing, until guards threatened them with cattle prods. 12 women visible. How many more in trucks still arriving? A guard pattern shifted unexpectedly. Someone had finally decided to earn their pay. Seagal pressed himself into an alcove, controlling his breathing until it matched the night wind. The guard passed within 3 feet, close enough that Seagal could smell his cigarette brand and cheap cologne. When the danger passed, Seagal continued his reconnaissance. He found the connection to Damon's gym, an underground tunnel, probably old storm drainage repurposed. Fighters could move equipment without anyone noticing. Perfect cover. He'd seen enough. These operations relied on invisibility, on people not believing they existed. But Seagal had spent decades making the invisible visible, dragging shadows into light. Back at his truck, he reviewed the photos. Clear enough for warrants. Maybe, but cops moved slowly and lawyers moved slower. How many women would disappear while bureaucracy ground forward? He made 2 calls. First, Rodriguez, we need to meet. Tomorrow, noon. Bring someone from the FBI you trust. Someone who cares more about victims than career. That bad. Worse. This is what I think it is. The second call was to Frank. Tomorrow's training is postponed. Rest. Prepare. Things are about to accelerate. Sensei, what's? Just trust me, old friend. And keep Nancy close. Seagal drove home through empty streets, mind already working through scenarios. Victor Markov had built something evil in Denver's shadow. Time to remind him why shadows weren't as safe as they seemed. The photos on his camera would destroy lives, end careers, free innocence. Just another night's work for a man who'd never really retired. Damon's press conference was pure theater. He stood before Ultimate Warrior Gym's logo, championship belt, draped over his shoulder, playing to the dozen cameras like a conductor with an orchestra. Some of you saw the viral video. He began, trademark smirk in place. An old man attacked me during a charity event. Used some tricks, caught me off guard. It happens. Reporters leaned forward. This was gold. But what you didn't see was why. I was correcting this so-called veteran. Damon clicked a remote. Security footage played on a screen behind him. Frank falling, trembling, failing at basic exercises. The video had been edited to make him look worse, removing context, adding slow-motion humiliation. Frank Kowalski claims to be a Navy veteran. Can't even do jumping jacks. Damon's voice dripped contempt. Makes you wonder what else he's lying about. Stolen valor is a serious accusation, but when a man can't perform basic training moves. In their living room, Frank and Nancy watched in horror. Frank's hands gripped the armchair until his knuckles went white. Turn it off, Nancy pleaded. No, I need to hear this. Damon continued his performance. So I'm announcing the Veterans vs. Champions exhibition. 1 week from today, real veterans welcome. But I'm specifically calling out Mr. Kowalski. If he's the warrior he claims, let him prove it in the ring. Unless he's too scared to face me without his kung fu teacher protecting him. The reporters ate it up, shouting questions. Damon fielded them expertly, each answer another twist of the knife. Nancy reached for Frank's hand. You don't have to do this. You have nothing to prove to that animal. Frank's expression had changed. The tremors were gone, replaced by something Nancy recognized from old photos. The look he'd worn in combat. Some fights choose you, he said quietly. This isn't about me anymore. It's about every veteran he's mocking with this circus. He pulled out his phone, dialed Seagal. Across town, Seagal sat with Rodriguez and FBI agent Sarah Chun in Rodriguez's home office. They watched the same broadcast on a laptop. He's baiting you, Chun observed. She was early 40s, sharp-eyed, with the lean intensity of someone who'd chosen justice over ambition. Classic provocation. Let him bait, Seagal said as his phone rang. Frank. I'm watching. Yes. Are you sure? I understand. He hung up, turned to the others. Frank accepts the challenge. Steven, that's exactly what they want. No. Seagal's smile was dangerous. They want me angry and reactive. Instead, we give them a show while we destroy their operation. The exhibition is perfect cover. Shin pulled up files on her tablet. We've been tracking Victor's network for 2 years. Never enough evidence for warrants. Your photos change that, but judges still want probable cause for the main warehouse. The fight gives you that. All eyes on the gym, security focused there. Victor won't resist showing up to watch his investment perform. Seagal's tactical mind was already working. You'll have your probable cause when we free those women. Rodriguez grinned. Just like Bangkok? No. In Bangkok, I worked alone. This time, Seagal's phone buzzed with Frank's text. I'll fight. Not for my honor, but for everyone he's hurt. This time we do it right. Rodriguez's living room transformed into a war room. Maps covered the coffee table, laptops showed building schematics, and coffee cups multiplied like mushrooms. The doorbell rang at 8 p.m. That'll be them, Rodriguez said. 3 veterans entered. Men who'd witnessed Damon's cruelty and come looking for Seagal afterward. Marcus Doc Williams moved with a medic's constant assessment, cataloging exits and injuries. Jimmy Boland's sniper-trained eyes had already mapped the room. Ray Kaczynski filled the doorway like a Polish mountain. Gentlemen, Seagal greeted them. Thank you for coming. We saw what happened to Frank, Doc said. That ain't right. Man serves his country, comes home broken, and some punk kid spits on him. Nah. Chun stepped forward. Before we continue, I need to explain the real situation. This isn't just about a boxing match. She laid out Victor's operation, the trafficking, the missing women, the web of corruption. The veterans listened with growing anger. Human trafficking. In Denver. Using gyms as cover. Ray cracked his knuckles. And the cops know? Knowing and proving are different things, Chin admitted. We need evidence, witnesses, proof that'll stand in court. Screw court, Jimmy muttered. In Nam, we had ways of handling. We do this legally, Seagal interrupted gently. But that doesn't mean we do it gently. He explained the plan. The exhibition would draw Victor's security to the gym. While Frank fought Damon in the main event, the others would coordinate. Doc would manage crowd control and medical needs. Jimmy would provide overwatch, spotting threats. Ray would be Frank's backup, ready to step in. And you? Doc asked Seagal. I'll be Frank's corner man. Publicly. Until the moment arrives to be something else. What about the women in the warehouse? FBI SWAT will be positioned outside, waiting for the signal. Once we confirm Victor's presence at the gym and document additional evidence, they move. Frank had been quiet throughout. Now he spoke. I'm not just bait. I can fight. Maybe not like I used to, but you'll fight, Seagal assured him. But not alone. Never alone. He stood, moving to the room's center. We have 5 days. I'll teach you what you need. Not to become warriors, you already are that. But to remember what you've forgotten. For the next 3 hours, Seagal demonstrated. Techniques adapted for older bodies, injuries, limitations. Simple moves that relied on leverage and timing rather than strength. The veterans learned with the focus of men who'd survived by adapting. Damon fights with rage, Seagal explained, guiding Ray through a redirect. Use it against him. Let him gas himself out. Let him make mistakes. And if he doesn't? Frank asked. Then we remind him that old lions are still lions. As they prepared to leave, Doc pulled Seagal aside. Bangkok, 97. I was there. Different unit. But we heard about what you did. Those women you saved. My daughter's age now. Seagal nodded silently. We're with you. All the way. One by one, veterans departed. Frank lingered, looking at the maps and photos. We're really doing this, he said. We're really doing this, Seagal confirmed. And we're going to win. Not just the fight, everything. Dawn broke over Denver as Seagal's dojo filled with determined men. Frank stood in the center, transformed. No tremors. Eyes clear, body relaxed yet ready. The broken veteran was gone, replaced by a warrior who'd remembered his purpose. Today, we free innocents, Seagal addressed the group. We expose evil. We show them that honor isn't dead. The veterans had spent 5 days training intensively. Doc Williams checked medical supplies while practicing nerve strikes. Jimmy Boland cleaned already spotless equipment, sniper's obsession with perfection showing. Ray Kaczynski shadowboxed, each movement precise despite his size. Communications? Seagal asked. Rodriguez held up earpieces. Encrypted channel. FBI's on standby. Seagal approached Frank with a worn black belt. This was my first. Earned it 47 years ago in Japan. Today it's yours. Frank's eyes misted as he accepted the honor. Sensei, you've always been a black belt, Frank. This just makes it official. Nancy arrived carrying Frank's navy dress uniform jacket. If you're doing this, do it as who you really are, a decorated veteran who's got nothing to prove but everything to fight for. The men geared up, not with weapons, but with purpose. Each knew their role. Chun texted updates. FBI positioned, warrants ready, just needed confirmation. Of Victor's presence and active trafficking. Remember, Seagal said as they prepared to leave, the fight is distraction. Saving those women is the mission. Frank, you just need to survive long enough to give us cover. I'll do better than survive, Frank promised, the belt tied around his waist. They loaded into vehicles. Frank's repaired truck, Rodriguez's unmarked car, Seagal's pickup. A convoy of justice heading toward confrontation. Nancy kissed Frank goodbye. Come back whole. I will. All of us will. The convoy rolled out. 7 warriors against an empire of evil. Ultimate Warrior Gym pulsed with electricity. Hundreds packed the space. Cameras everywhere. The air thick with anticipation and sweat. Victor Markov sat ringside in a $1,000 suit. Dmitri flanking him, both watching for threats. Seagal entered as Frank's corner man, hood up, moving with calculated humility. The veterans dispersed. Doc to the medical station, Jimmy to an elevated position with sight lines, Ray warming up as alternate fighter. Preliminary matches began. Real fights to maintain cover, local fighters earning paychecks. The veterans watched, learning, noting victors' security positions. 6 men, strategically placed, all armed. Chin texted Seagal, "Teams ready." Neat. Visual confirmation of victor and evidence of ongoing operations. Damon made his entrance to thunderous music and pyrotechnics. He'd spent the week training furiously, ego demanding redemption. Eddie Carlson followed, constantly checking his phone, sweating despite the AC. First veteran match, Ray dominated his opponent with Seagal-taught techniques. The younger fighter, expecting an easy win, tapped out in 2 minutes. The crowd stirred, sensing something different about tonight. Doc and Jimmy maintained positions. Through earpieces, 3 more of Victor's men just entered. Eastern Europeans, neck tattoos. Seagal noted everything while appearing to focus solely on Frank. He caught Victor's eye once. The Russian's face showed recognition and calculation. Good. Keep watching me, Seagal thought. Main event. The announcer boomed. Frank Kowalski versus Damon, the Destroyer Reeves. Frank entered wearing his navy jacket over the GI, black belt visible. The crowd's mockery died as they recognized military bearing, saw the ribbons, and rank. This wasn't some old man. This was a warrior. He removed the jacket with ceremony, handed it to Nancy in the front row. Damon bounced in his corner, trying to look confident, but his eyes betrayed uncertainty. Seagal whispered to Frank, "Remember, redirect. Don't resist. Let him defeat himself." The bell rang. Frank moved like water. Damon expected the trembling old man from the viral video. Instead, he faced someone who'd found his center, who moved with economy and purpose. Damon threw his signature combination. Frank flowed around it, redirecting the energy, making Damon stumble. The champion's face reddened. He charged with a takedown attempt. Frank pivoted, using Damon's momentum against him. The champion hit the mat hard, crowd gasping. This wasn't the humiliation they'd expected. "Lucky," Damon snarled, bouncing up. They circled. Damon threw kicks, punches, everything in his arsenal. Frank didn't block. He blended, redirected, turned every attack into Damon's disadvantage. The younger man's frustration grew with each failed assault. "Fight me," Damon screamed. "I am," Frank replied calmly. "You're just fighting yourself." 3 minutes in, Damon was breathing hard while Frank remained steady. The crowd sensed the shift. This wasn't youth dominating age, but wisdom exposing arrogance. Damon attempted his finishing move, the spinning back elbow. Frank read it perfectly, ducking under while sweeping Damon's planted leg. The champion crashed down, stars in his eyes. The ref moved in, but Damon waved him off, ego demanding continuation. As Frank helped him up, showing honor Damon never had, the champion threw a cheap shot to Frank's kidney. Frank staggered but didn't fall. Instead, he caught Damon's follow-up punch, redirected it into a spectacular throw that sent the champion flying across the ring. The crowd erupted. Victor's eyes narrowed, realizing something was very wrong. His security shifted, hands moving to weapons. In the chaos, Seagal slipped away from Frank's corner. Chin's text confirmed, "Victor present. Multiple armed suspects identified. You're green." Doc's voice in the earpiece, "Boss is moving. Positions everyone." While the crowd focused on Frank standing over the day's champion, Death moved silently toward the warehouse. The warehouse connector was exactly where Seagal's reconnaissance placed it. While the gym erupted over Frank's dominance, Seagal ghosted through the tunnel, every sense alert. First guard never saw him coming. Nerve strike to the neck, unconscious. Before hitting ground, Seagal zip-tied him, continued forward. Second guard was lighting a cigarette, ruining night vision. Seagal's hand covered his mouth while the other found the carotid artery. Silent sleep in 3 seconds. The holding area sprawled before him. 12 women in cages, 2 more guards playing cards. Seagal assessed angles, then moved. He threw the unconscious guard's radio. Both card players turned toward the sound. Seagal flowed between them. Palm strike to solar plexus, dropping one, spinning elbow to temple, felling the other. The women stirred, some crying out. Seagal spoke softly in Russian, Spanish, English. "FBI. You're safe now. Stay quiet." Lock. Picks appeared from his pocket. skills from another lifetime. Each cage open with practiced efficiency. The women huddled together, terrified but hopeful. This way, federal agents are waiting. He led them through the tunnel, alert for more. Guards. Ahead, shouting erupted from the gym. The fight continuing, Frank still providing distraction. Two more guards appeared, alerted by radio silence. They saw Seagal reach for weapons. Time slowed. Seagal's hand found the first guard's gun, redirected it into his partner's knee. As that man fell, Seagal's elbow struck the first guard's temple. Both down in 5 seconds. The women reached the exit where Chin's team waited. 12 souls secured, Seagal reported. Warehouse is yours. Roger. Stand by for. Gunfire erupted from the gym. Victor had discovered the breach. Seagal's expression went cold. The real fight was just beginning. Go, he told Chun. I have unfinished business. He moved back toward the gym where Frank was now in mortal danger, flowing like death itself through the shadows. Chaos erupted as Victor's men drew weapons. The crowd screamed, stampeding toward exits. Victor himself stood, cold fury replacing calculation. Where is Seagal? He roared at his lieutenant. Find him. In the ring, Frank shielded himself as Damon scrambled away, suddenly aware this had escalated beyond sport. Ray and Doc moved to cover positions while Jimmy tracked targets from above. Nobody leaves. Victor commanded. His men blocked exits, weapons visible. You think you can steal from me? Through the earpiece, Chin reported. Warehouse secured, 12 women safe. Moving to your position. Victor spotted Nancy in the front row, recognized her from surveillance photos. In one fluid motion, he vaulted the barrier and grabbed her, pressing a pistol to her temple. Seagal. Victor's voice carried over the panic. Show yourself, or she dies. Frank started forward, but froze as Victor pressed the gun harder. Nancy's eyes were wide but steady. A Navy wife who'd waded through deployments, who understood. Danger. 10 seconds. Victor shouted. The gym lights flickered. From the shadows near the warehouse entrance, a figure emerged. Seagal had shed his disguise, moving with the controlled power of an apex predator. His presence changed the room's energy. Even panicked civilians sensed something primal. Victor. Seagal's voice was calm as a funeral, still hiding behind innocence. Recognition rippled through the crowd. Holy shit, that's Steven Seagal. Phones appeared despite the guns, documenting everything. Victor smiled coldly. The legend himself. Bangkok was expensive lesson, but I learned. You have weakness, conscience. Let her go. Your quarrel is with me. No, my quarrel is with my stolen property. 12 units, worth 3 million. Victor's men formed a circle, weapons trained on Seagal. You cost me once. Not again. Seagal's eyes never left Victor's. Your move. Victor nodded to his men. Kill him. 6 men opened fire simultaneously. But Seagal was already moving, a ghost flowing between bullets. He rolled behind concrete pillars as rounds sparked off metal and stone. The first gunman rounded the pillar. Seagal's hand guided the gun up as it fired, bullets hitting ceiling tiles. His other hand found the man's elbow, hyperextending it with a wet snap. The gun clattered away as Seagal's palm strike sent the man unconscious. Second and third attackers came together. Seagal caught the first man's wrist, spinning him into his partner. Their weapons discharged into each other's body armor, stunning both. Seagal's elbows found their temples in rapid succession. Get him! Victor screamed, dragging Nancy backward. Frank moved with newfound purpose, intercepting Dmitri as he tried to flank Seagal. The veteran's Aikido training showed, redirecting. The larger man's charge into a wall, following with a nerve strike Doc had taught him. Ray and Jimmy coordinated from their positions. Ray tackled civilians to safety while Jimmy called out positions. 2 more. You're 6. Seagal flowed backward, letting attackers overcommit. One lunged with a knife. Seagal redirected the blade into the man's own thigh, following with a strike that dropped him instantly. The last gunman emptied his clip at shadows while Seagal materialized behind him, applying a sleeper hold with surgical precision. In 15 seconds, 6 armed men lay unconscious or incapacitated. Seagal hadn't thrown a single punch, using only their violence against them. The crowd watched in stunned silence. This wasn't movie choreography. This was death given form, choosing mercy at the last instant. Victor's confidence cracked. He pressed the gun harder against Nancy's temple. Stay back. I'll kill her. Seagal stopped 10 feet away, hands visible. No, Victor. You'll try. Victor's gun hand trembled slightly. Age, fear, or rage. You think you're untouchable? I'll paint these walls with her blood. Then what? Seagal asked conversationally. You kill an innocent woman on camera, in front of witnesses. Where's your exit strategy? While Victor focused on Seagal, Frank circled slowly, using crowd movement as cover. His tremors were gone, replaced by the steady purpose of a corpseman moving under fire. I have connections. Lawyers. You'll die in prison, alone, forgotten. Seagal stepped closer. Or you can surrender with dignity. Victor's face contorted. He swung the gun toward Frank. This is your fault. Time dilated. Frank saw the muzzle swing toward him, saw Victor's finger tighten. Accepted it. Nancy was safe. That's what mattered. Then Damon moved. The champion had been forgotten in the chaos, nursing his bruised ego and body. But seeing Victor threaten Frank, the man he'd humiliated, who'd shown him mercy, something shifted. Damon tackled Victor from the blind side. The gun fired, bullet, catching Damon's shoulder, spinning him away. Victor went down hard, weapon skittering across the floor. No. Victor lunged for the gun. Seagal's foot swept it away, then continued into a precise strike to Victor's knee. The Russian dropped, screaming. FBI agents swarmed through every entrance, Chen leading them. Nobody moved. Federal agents. Seagal knelt beside Damon, who was bleeding but conscious. The champion grabbed Seagal's shirt weakly. I'm sorry. Tell Frank. I'm sorry. Tell him yourself, Seagal said gently, applying pressure to the wound. Redemption comes to those who choose it. You chose. Paramedics rushed in. Nancy ran to Frank, their embrace fierce and desperate. Around them, Victor's empire crumbled as his men were arrested, the entire event captured on dozens of cameras. Justice had arrived, delivered by unlikely heroes. 1 month later, sunrise painted Seagal's dojo in golden light. Frank led the morning class with quiet confidence, demonstrating forms to a group of veterans who'd found their way here after news of the trafficking bust spread. Remember, Frank instructed, Aikido isn't about defeating others. It's about conquering yourself. The door opened. Damon entered, left arm still in a sling, designer clothes replaced by a simple GI. He bowed deeply at the threshold, proper etiquette Seagal had taught him during hospital visits. Sensei Kowalski, Damon said formally. I request permission to learn the right way. Frank studied him, seeing genuine humility where arrogance once lived. He glanced at Seagal, who nodded almost imperceptibly. Warriors help warriors heal, Frank said. Join us. Damon took his place among the other students. No special treatment, no recognition of his fame. Just another man seeking wisdom. They trained together, 3 generations united. Seagal moved among them, adjusting stances, offering guidance. Doc Williams helped newer students with injuries. Jimmy and Ray had become assistant instructors, their military precision adapted to peaceful purpose. On the small TV in the corner, a news report played quietly. International trafficking ring dismantled across 3 states. FBI credits anonymous tip leading to rescue of 47 women. Business owner Viktor Markov faces life imprisonment. Seagal turned it off. The past was settled. Only the present mattered. Nancy watched from the doorway, no longer worried about Frank's tremors because they'd vanished completely. He'd found his purpose, not in violence, but in teaching others to heal. As the sun climbed higher, the dojo filled with quiet concentration. Warriors training not for destruction, but for protection. Broken men becoming whole. Honor replacing shame. Seagal smiled slightly, remembering his master's words. True victory is not defeating your enemy, but turning him into your ally. Today, in this simple dojo, that victory was complete. If you liked the story, please watch another story on our channel and subscribe to the channel.